Hugh got a wonderful piece, and it's really smart about how this folksy Midwestern down home values guy might have been a little too internet savvy in what I might call a weird way. We'll get to that in a second. And everybody go to Noah's Twitter feed. He's got that there at Noah C. Rothman. But first, let me just ask you to weigh in. Tempest in a teapot or something that's really going to have legs? How damaging from disqualifying to not at all? The whole stolen valor kerfuffle.
So I I'm I just want to be careful not to get out over my skis. I'm still intaking information here. I did not serve. I'm not one to be saying who stole valor where, what have you. What we do seem to be able to say definitively at this point is that uh, uh, Governor Walz likes to go by a rank that he attained, but did not meet all the requirements in order to achieve. So he was not busted down or demoted, but he reverted to the rank of Master Sergeant when he retired. That is what he should go by. He doesn't. That's a little weird. The deployment issue is the big question. It's not Republicans bringing this up. It's his former Confederates in the services, his allies that he served with, who are saying that we got a warning to deploy, and then he left. And that does seem to be supported in documentation. The great thing about the military is this is not he said, she said. We have a paper trail for everything. So we can absolutely determine and ascertain that Mr. Walz was likely informed that his unit was going to deploy to Europe to serve in Operation Enduring Freedom in a support role, and that he was aware of that when he left Congress. And his fellow Confederates have every opportunity, every reason to say, I'm frustrated by this. I am cautioning my fellow Republicans, however, to be careful about questioning his service. Everything we know about it, it was honorable. He was honorably discharged. He joined up, volunteered to re-enlist a week after 9/11. I'm hesitant to question that. I think
No,
Republicans
no one
do
is.
well
No,
to
you're
narrow the
totally right. But no one is doing. You're 100% correct. But no one is doing this. This is what Pete Buttigieg and others, in their clumsy attempt to defend Tim Walz, are saying. They're saying, "Hey, how dare you criticize his service? Criticize his service. Especially those of us who have not served shouldn't criticize the service of another person." No one is doing that. What everybody is doing is questioning whether he abandoned that service at one point in order to avoid going to a war zone. So if indeed, and you're also right about it not being a he said, she said, they said kind of thing. The military is slavish in its devotion to record keeping. So it doesn't seem like we should spend too many days in this fog of exactly how the timeline played out of when did he decide to step out of the National Guard? Did he sign up for more time than he actually served? And in what order did this all come? It seems like this should not be mysterious for much longer. What do
And
you
did
think?
he know that he was going to be deployed to a combat zone, which is really gray? I haven't seen any information that suggests he definitively was informed he was going to a combat zone as opposed to Europe in a support role.
So, all right. So there we are. So let's that will all develop. It'll either develop additional legs or not. I wanted to cover that with you first. What was the first thing that occurred to you when she walked out with him? When it was not Josh Shapiro. When I say we all know why it wasn't, and because it was her kowtowing to the anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party, does that strike you as wholly true or too glib?
Almost wholly true, probably 90% true. I'm sure there were other contributing factors. But I have to assume that Eric Holder, former Attorney General who was doing the vetting process for Kamala Harris, found an actual literal skeleton in Josh Shapiro's closet. Because I can't even imagine that they would not prefer to be in a situation now where they're defending Josh Shapiro, whatever came up about him in the vetting process, versus what's happening with Tim Walz. Tim Walz looks really good on paper. Tim Walz is a natural politician. He has a humor about him, a jaunty affect that is very charming, frankly. What he does not have is the lack of baggage around him. And what we've seen from his debut so far is that a lot of the things that I think appealed to Kamala Harris, the fact that what we're hearing in private is that she was a little intimidated by Josh Shapiro, that her team did not like the fact that he was an ambitious guy who eventually sought the presidency himself, and that he's a very capable, competent, and adroit politician on the stage, and she is not. And they wanted to avoid that. And what they got instead with Tim Walz is a guy who appeals to the very online wing of the Democratic Party, the progressives who were lobbying for him hard. The objective here was to unite the party, keep this honeymoon going, maintain this artificial euphoria around the ticket, and also appease a lot of the people who spend a lot of time engaging in politics online. And you saw that from this introduction of him on the debate stage, or not on the debate stage, on this rally stage on Tuesday night, I believe. And he was generally good, but then he would release, as you noted earlier in the segment, he would release these lines that you have to be really, really steeped in political culture to even understand. The most annoying of which, probably the lowest blow that he issued, was this couch line, which is where he's like, JD Vance has to get off the couch, which doesn't make any sense because he's not a lazy guy. He's on the trail constantly talking to reporters, constantly doing events. So that doesn't like identify a deep, dark weakness in JD Vance's persona that we otherwise didn't know. What it does is channel this very online slander, a defamation that alleges that JD Vance did something very untoward with a couch. Now, the thing is, Tim Walz cannot explain the joke. Tim Walz can reference the joke. But if you sat him down and asked him to explain in graphic detail what he's referring to, he's going to hum and because he can't. It is far too sordid and gross. So why did they even bring it up if not only to appease a very online wing of the Democratic left? And that is a warning sign to me. That seems really steeped in an artificial culture.
They're trying to. He was just trying to be too cute by half, and it left a lot of people scratching their heads. I want to go back a minute and a half to an observation you made about Kamala Harris's vetting process. If it was even hers, did Eric Holder or the Obamas or the Clintons make this choice for her? We'll examine that conspiratorial issue here in a second. But if indeed she was, quote unquote, intimidated by Josh Shapiro, how thrilled I am to see her go up against President Xi of China. If the governor of Pennsylvania intimidates her because of his ambition, how will she bow up against actual evil world leaders? Is that a fair question?
It's absolutely a fair question. This is the shiny object phase. We're spending a lot of time talking about the vice president like it matters. Eventually, we're going to refocus ourselves on the top of the ticket, on both sides of the aisle, by the way. The JD Vance and Tim Walz have consumed a lot of oxygen, and they will continue to over the course of August. That ends by the end of August. Silly season is over, and we start actually talking about who the president is and what they're going to do while they're in office. Right now, the press and voters generally are less informed about that, just because they're engaged and enthused with the whole rollout process, the drama, theatrics, the dramaturgy of it. That's going to pass very quickly. And yes, the question will be, how will Kamala Harris navigate an international environment where she has almost sole authority to conduct U.S. foreign policy overseas? She needs to establish for herself a stature that she has so far lacked in the vice presidency. And the campaign is not establishing it for her. Right now, they're treating her like a celebrity. They're cosseting her and not allowing her to engage extemporaneously with anyone, reporters, voters, what have you. That's just not going to hold. Eventually, voters are going to have to get a real eyeful of Kamala Harris, and then it could be a jarring juxtaposition between the myth-making around her, the idea that she is this hyper-competent, adroit figure on the campaign trail, which she is not, and then they'll encounter with the person that they've known in public life now for half a decade or more, and it will conflict with that image that they're cultivating. Look, everybody in America knew Joe Biden was decrepit when he got on the debate stage. But when he really displayed who he was, it hit very hard.